This pen can give you fine hairlines and bold brushlight strokes all in one tool. So let's see how. The pen I'm using has a Fude nib, which is basically a bent nib and it looks like you dropped it. If you can see that nice and clearly there. They were originally designed for East Asian calligraphy, and you get a thicker or thinner line depending on how much you tilt the pen, and so therefore what angle the nib is touching the paper at, like this. So if I hold it upright like this, I get a thinner line. As I tilt it more, it gets thicker and thicker. And you get an even thinner line by turning the nib upside down. But good if you want to do, say, some hatching, perhaps. So let's just do some curls with it, holding it quite upright, tilting it a bit more, just tilting it more and more, turn it upside down. And because of the variation that occurs naturally just by the way that you twist and turn your wrist as you're drawing across the page, it makes them ideal for adding a bit of character to a sketch. And it's really handy for things like foliage where you want sort of randomness, because as your hand moves around the page and your wrist tilts, naturally the line will tilt. Obviously I'm exaggerating that for this, but you get the idea. Another thing I find it really useful for is when you want really black areas, like for example car tyres or window panes. And you can get a really black area like that. But because of that, it does obviously use quite a lot of ink. The brand I'm using here is a Sailor. It's a Sailor Fude de Mannen, and I'll put a link in the description if you're interested in buying one. I think they're very reasonably priced. I think I paid about £12 each for mine, and I have two. When I bought the first one, the blue one, call me shallow, but I bought it because I like the colour. I had no idea that they were actually different pens. The blue one actually has a different angled nib. The blue one is a 40-degree angle and the green one is a 55-degree angle, and what that means is you can get a slightly fatter line with the green one and a slightly thinner line with the blue one. One thing I will say is that I hadn't used the blue one for about 18 months after I bought the green one, and I only got it out of the drawer to make this video, and it worked first time, which to me is absolutely brilliant for any fountain pen that's just been left in a drawer with ink in it, never mind one that costs 12 quid. So I can highly recommend them based on my use. And talking of cost, if you want to use your own ink, you'll probably need to add on the cost of a converter, which is about £7 or £8. There is another way of doing it, which I'll come to and show you a bit later on in the video. But for now, let's just get these filled up so that I can demonstrate them side by side. I'm using platinum carbon ink. It's my favourite water resistant ink that I use 99% of the time. I have used another couple of inks, but majority of time I'm using this. The bottle actually has a small well inside it that you need to fill up, kind of a reservoir. So you need to first of all turn it upside down, obviously, make sure the lid is on. And sorry if I'm teaching you to suck eggs, but it's a really good idea to have some paper towel around. So we just unscrew it, and there's the converter. You can see that reservoir inside the bottle. And we're going to dip, sorry my hand's getting in the way, but we can dip the nib in there, hold on to the converter, and then turn the converter clockwise. I'll give it a wipe. And put the lid back on. And wash your hands. If you don't want to buy a converter, you can buy a blunt syringe. I think mine came in a pack of 5, very cheap. And you can use the syringe to empty the cartridge that came with the pen, flush it out with water, leave it at least overnight to completely dry, and then refill it with the ink. It does mean you don't have to buy a converter, but it's a little bit messier, I find. but it's up to you. And Fude pens do use up quite a lot of ink, not surprising really when you look at the line thickness you're getting. So let's do a comparison between the two nibs side by side. You can see the blue is not quite as fat. So you can see the variation on the blue is not so great. The green is quite a lot fatter line on the green one. Let's turn them both upside down and see how they perform. Yeah, it is scratchy turning it upside down. I don't do it very often. I don't think I've done it with the blue. Oh, the blue's actually easier to use upside down. Whether that's just this pen, I don't know. So there's the difference. So you do get more variation with the green. So you can certainly get a fatter line. Of course, Sailor isn't the only brand of Fude nibs you can buy. I actually have two more. Well, I have three more, but one of them we won't even talk about. I have a Jinhao, which I don't really know why I bought it, and it's terrible. It's really scratchy. I won't go into too much detail about it here, but I do have it mentioned in another video, which I'll put a link to here. Basically, avoid a Jinhao that's got a dragon on it. That would be my advice. But I do have this Jinhao that was very cheap, and it was less than £10 with the converter. And it's actually okay. I find it very smooth to write with. It's quite fat compared to the Sailor. And the final one I have is this one. It's a Black Forest. This one was about £18 with a converter, and it's a nice looking pen, and they do come in lots of other colours, and being a bit of a magpie I am really tempted to buy one of the other colours, but this one has just sat in a drawer, so there's absolutely no point. The reason it's sat in a drawer is there's absolutely nothing wrong with this pen. It's really nice. I just prefer the feel and the weight and the balance of the Sailor, but that's totally personal choice. One of the other things I like about these Sailor pens is they have a little knobble on the lid, so when you put them down they don't roll off the table. Small thing, but very handy. Once you've decided and bought your Fude nib pen, you might find it useful to do some warm-ups and just spend some time on a page varying the tilt of the pen and experimenting with different line widths and seeing how the width changes as you draw lines across the page, just to get used to it before you venture out on an urban sketch with it. And don't forget to fill it up before you go. So now let's go and try them out side by side. I'm taking with me a C. White of Brighton A5 watercolour sketchbook and the Winsor & Newton pocket field box with the professional watercolours in it. So I've just come here to one of my local parks, and I'm going to draw the building behind me with the clock tower. And I'm going to do one of the drawings with a 40-degree nib and then one with a 55-degree nib, so we can see the difference. Hello, I haven't got any nuts, sorry. Just sort of marking out in my head how big things are. I want to get the top in. I also want to get the bottom in. I wonder if I should do it that way around. No. After a bit of deliberating, I'm going to start with the closest angle to me. And then I'm thinking about a clock face. Okay. And now with the green pen with the 55-degree nib. As you can see, I actually started in a different place with the second drawing. In the first drawing, even though I looked at what was my highest point, which was obviously the spire on top of the clock tower, somehow I still didn't quite allow enough room for it. So this time I started with that to try and make sure that this time it didn't fall off the page. And I often start my drawings with the biggest shapes, but here I wanted to make sure that I fitted all the windows in. So I was actually drawing some of the details before I drew the big building on the left. Every drawing's different, there's no rules, and you just adapt to what's in front of you. So there's sketch number 2. So let's compare. Let's look at the scene that we're painting. So the first one I did with the blue pen, and the second one with the green pen. To be honest, I can't really tell that much difference. I think it's different when you're deliberately trying to make the pen work at different angles and you're demonstrating that the green one can produce a thicker line. But when you're just drawing with it and not really thinking about it, I don't think there's that much difference. So with that in mind, if I had to choose between the two, I would probably choose the 55-degree nib so that I can get those thicker lines when I want to. Let me know in the comments what you think. I went ahead and gave them both a watercolour wash. So there's the second sketch with the green 55-degree nib, and there's the first sketch with the blue 40-degree nib. Now actually I prefer the first one because I prefer the paint, but that wasn't the object of this exercise. But I've ended up with such completely different paint colours. I don't really know how. I was rushing a bit because I've got to do two. But in terms of the actual of the ink work, actually I think I prefer the blue. I haven't used the blue for months. I think it might be resurrected. Well, I hope that's been useful, and if you have got any questions, please do leave them in the comments. And do let me know if you post any of your own sketches up using a Fude nib pen. Thanks for watching, and happy sketching.